Yes. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Multimedia Toastmasters. My name is Abhijit. Today we have a fun agenda. We have a speech from Sandra Savage and Derek Ho. Before we get started, let me call upon Pooja. Pooja is going to take us through the lightning slides. Pooja, it's all you.
Thank you, Abhijit, and welcome everyone to another meeting of the Multimedia Magicians. Today, I have something fun in mind for our lightning slides. To give you a background, lightning slides is where I'm going to give you a visual prompt and you speak about it for 30 seconds. There's a countdown timer on the slide. I will call out your name and you talk about the prompt on the slide. Today, we're going to do a little bit of a fun team building activity because we're about to charter. So what I have in mind is I'm going to show you some prompts, some visuals, which are very, very popular movies, but we are going to build our own story. So when you see your prompt, you talk about the character or the item or the scene, but don't end it. The person who goes next is going to continue from there, and we're going to make a movie about this, or a story of a movie. So are you ready now? We can begin. So the first one I'm going to start with is Abhijit.
I enjoyed the Cinderella movies, but this movie, this especially character, was something I will never forget. It started when I was 6 years old. The movie started, and I was not supposed to watch that movie, but that day, something changed. My mom was not home, and I got a chance to watch that movie just by myself.
Jaimol.
As soon as I started watching movie, this lion comes from nowhere and it scares the hell out of me. I didn't know what to do. My mom is also not around and I'm home all alone. This lion looked at me, but then I somehow got courage and I stayed and stared back at the lion.
Dinesh.
Yeah, this is my dream castle. I always loved to have this and stay here after my retirement. And for that, I already booked this. And I invite each of you, as and when time permits, you are most welcome. We will have a wonderful time in this castle. At the same time, one most important thing is we will also have a Toastmasters meeting in this castle. Thank you.
Chie.
The lion really scared me into the castle, but when I ran inside the castle, I found something that I was looking for. In fact, it was something that my friend had lost at a ball 2 years ago. But it wasn't any type of ball. It was a Toastmasters special ball where they had to dance inside a pumpkin. That was an interesting episode.
Namita.
I went to Saudi Arabia. I was doing a desert safari. I stumbled upon a lamp. It looked like an ordinary lamp. It had some dust on it, so I rubbed it, and out came this genie. This genie told me, I'll grant you 3 wishes. And the 3 wishes were not supposed to be something that cannot be achievable. I cannot bring someone from the dead. I told him, today I don't have any wishes. Maybe my friend has. So maybe you can grant him his wishes today and today I will keep it aside. Thank you.
Elaine.
So armed with no wishes because I'd give them all to my friend, I headed back to the castle because I was going to, figure out what to do after the dance and the pumpkin. So I headed out from the desert, and pretty soon it got pretty forested. It was really a fantastic, amazing forest. And as I went through, I kept hearing this sound in the trees. Ooh, 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 ooh. I wondered, what could it be?
Linda.
Wow, so beautiful is the very colorful dinners coming soon. Where is it? Is it like the garden, yard, or forest? I think maybe it's the good parties. So I think the guest is also is to prepare the on the way, and maybe it's the birthday party or one ceremony is for big family, but definitely it is very happiness and it's joyful. It's a very good night evening. Yeah, it's for the family time. Thank you.
Michael.
Well, this party has been mad, has it not? I have no idea what this creature is supposed to represent. But then, what do we know about any creature? Perhaps it's an owl, or perhaps it's a dog. We don't know, because as you saw, we are all going mad. And with that, I return control to you.
Ravi. Ravi, do you want to go?
Finally, I started staring at the ocean. After deserts, forests, and the ocean started talking to me. You're so small. I can't even eat you and fill my belly. Why do you want to eat me? I asked back the ocean. You thought all fairy tales are fun, didn't you? Try me.
And finally, to end our story, Dennis.
Finally, making my way back to the castle, I discovered that it had been infested with a hideous woman in a disgusting bright yellow gown. It was all I could do to stem back my gorge as I seized her and dragged her to the door of the castle, where I cast her out into the moat. I cast out the lion. I cast out the golden I'm sorry, it was a glass slipper. Glass slipper is the word I was looking for. I got rid of all of these Disney trappings and I turned my castle into a fine pub and invited my real friends. And we had an amazing testosterone filled, male dominated, peaceful, quiet castle where we could all get together and commiserate and not have to deal with all of these fantasy creatures ever again. The end.
Thank you, Dennis, for ending that story and for kicking all of us women out of the castle. Back to you, Abhijit.
Thank you so much, Pooja. Thank you. Thank you for those wonderful slides. It's like a game, String of Pearls. Elaine had told me about that game like a couple of years ago. It was fun. Today we have a packed agenda. Before we do that, we have lots of guests today. I welcome you all. In this club, we do round robin feedback. A speaker gives a speech, we have 1 minute of silence, and then we give round robin. Usually each person has 1 minute to give the feedback. We don't repeat the feedback if someone has given that. So let's get started. Our first speaker is Sandra Savage. This is her Level 3 Project 2 Innovative Planning Pathway, Creating Effective Visual Aids. The purpose of this project is for Sandra to practice selecting and using a variety of visual aids during a speech. Do your slides steal the show in a bad way? Does your club marketing pass the quick scan test? Sandra Savage, a graphic designer, a marketing professional, and a typographer with published articles on legibility and readability, shares with you tonight a few basic tricks to make your message loud and clear and not distracting. Sandra Savage, am I your type? Am I your type? Sandra Savage.
Thank you, Abhijit. Now, that was a great fiction, fast talking, story building, but I'm going to go back further, back into the world of typography. And if anybody can see behind me, I have a type case. I actually was a typographer back in the old days. And with that, I have learned a lot of different things through my training and through practice, and by keeping aware of what's going on, not only in print, but in social media. So with typography, the question is, am I your type? And I'm going to start with a beautiful gold. I guess I'm a little fanciful here, following our table topics. Envelope that arrives in the mail. It's an invitation. Is it to a ball? Who knows? Or it could be a posting on Facebook and it catches your eye. Just so that you know and you start to become aware that you're already doing it, the first thing you ask is, that caught my eye. I wonder what it's about. Why am I even looking at this? Would I be interested? When is it? Am I available? These are questions that we ask whenever we see anything being marketed to us. So I'm going to go over the role that fonts play, and there is a hierarchy. Some fonts and sizes and styles will call more attention than others. I'm also going to go through a little bit of terminology, not too much, I don't want to bore you. I do want to talk about readability and legibility. We want to make it easier for our readers, whether it's on a slide or a social media posting, to be able to read what you have there without fatigue. And there's so many of the ads out there we see that we get tired and we don't even realize it, but we say, I'm too much, moving on. We have a very small attention span, by the way. And then I'm going to talk about a little bit of finesse, a few little tips and tricks that you can use to really make your fonts do the work for you. Now, what I mean for you is I want you to look at these 3 ads. Here's one. Here's another one. And here's a non-Toastmasters one. Do you notice that on 2 out of the 3, you instantly know what the topic is? Whereas the one on the far right with the gentleman in the circle doesn't really tell you what's happening. It just looks like it's his business card. So there is a reason that those 2 on the left are going to call more attention for your eye than the one on the right. Starting with the hierarchy, you want to have your headline be the most important thing and the first thing people see. And you do that by using the right font and size. The second thing your reader wants to know is, when is it? Because I got so excited that there's a TEDx talk. but it's in Bahrain tomorrow morning. And I had to look up the time to see if I was available. The topic was interesting, but could I make it? So that's important. And that includes putting in your time zone, please. And then why? What's in it for me? Is this a topic that I'm interested in? And who is it for? Is it for Toastmasters? Is it for TEDx? Is it for laundry detergent? Is it for cigarettes? What is the branding on it? Now, here's an example of an ad I put together for Facebook. And I have to admit, it's a little busy, but the president of the company wanted all this information on it. Can anybody turn off their mic when they know the answer? What is the topic?
Mentoring success,
All right. When is it?
December 19th at 7 p.m.
Right. Why would I attend?
Because there are a
You
lot
know how
of
to
learning
get it.
exercises.
Okay. And who's it going to attract?
People like us who are interested in public speaking.
Right. Right.
I think it would attract people who are interested in exercise or dance.
Yes. Well, what I liked about it was this image showed collaboration. And in mentoring, the mentor and the protege actually benefit from each other. And that was a subliminal message that I wanted to put in there. Let's start at the very top with the font. And you all know what a font is, right? Helvetica, Times Roman, Garamond. There's all hundreds and thousands of fonts out there. I have most of them. But you know what? I stick to a couple good ones, a couple basic ones that are solid, ones that show not only well on the screen, but also in print. And that is what you're going to say is the what. A lot of ads you see on Facebook for Toastmaster meetings highlight the speaker. Well, I don't know that guy, so why do I care? I care about the topic. Okay, so put the most important thing in the biggest font, the boldest font you have. Make sure it's easy to read, it just pops out at you, and that it coordinates with the brand. And by the way, fonts kind of give you an idea of who the ad is directed towards and sets the tone. Now, back in the good old days when cigarettes were advertised, we had the Marlboro Man. And you notice the font on the bottom of the pack? It was a strong, manly font. It actually could have been a little bit, I think, more manly, to be honest. But compared to Virginia Slims, which was a thinner package, very thin typeface, because women want to be skinny, very cursive. So your font can also identify with who you are, your gender, your age, your social status, even your ethnicity. Now, in the big, huge world of fonts, there are two categories, generally. There's also some subcategories, but there are serif and sans serif. On a serif, you see those little doohickeys. That's what my dad would call them, thingamajigs, at the end of the S and the end of the E's and the F's. Whereas on sans serif, it's just like a crayon did it, right? Not a calligraphy pen. Sans serif is very clean. It's easier to read. If you are going to use a serif typeface, use it for email or the body text, but don't use it for headlines. Your sans serif is better for your headlines, definitely better for your presentations. You can see the example here of the serif and the sans serif. It's very important that for the web, you try to lean towards the sans serif. There's also more fatigue in fonts, and a lot of that has to do with different things like you've got your serifs, how high your ascenders and descenders are. And in the next slide, I'm going to show you why, if you have really fancy ascenders and descenders, you're going to want to put more line spacing between each line. Okay, you won't, because we actually don't read the way you think we do. In fact, what does that say?
Did you get that workshop?
You only read the top half of the letters. You didn't see the bottom half. Now, if you look at it again in lowercase, you can see if you have a high X height, where the lowercase letters are almost as tall as a capital letter, those are harder to read. And how long your line is also important. If you have a long sentence length, your eye actually has to pick up and move over. And that fatigues the eye. And unless that copy is really, really good, people are going to say it's too much, too hard to read. If you use a shorter line length, an average of 26 to 39 characters, depending on what point size you use, it'll be much easier to read. Your eye just does one line at a time. It doesn't have to do any jumping on the same line. Now, I have a little pet peeve, and I have to throw it in there because I am who I am. One of my pet peeves is this: inconsistent capitalization, hyphenation in things that aren't justified, meaning justified is a straight line on the right and on the left. This is centered. There's no reason for these bad breaks in this, and it's hard to read. But a lot of times people will hit the return instead of a soft return. They'll get capital letters, and then later they'll go and change things, and it's just a mess. Isn't that easier to read? Okay, so I'm watching this show for like 10 minutes, and the lady is listing all these really great things to do. Then I realize it's a religious channel, and she was listing sins. Put it like this, in almost the way you would say it out loud. Where you would take a pause is a good place to maybe put a line return. And for your slides, this is where I see the use of typography in a way that is very distracting. It's really important to use a different font for, say, the word slides than for the body text. I'm using a very heavy font, sans serif. I'm using a clean font, sans serif, but lowercase for my bullet points. And with your bullet points, that's what they are. They're not paragraphs. Your audience shouldn't be reading everything you're saying. Why are you there? Use those as bullet points for their memory and to jog yours in case you lose your place. Use 30-point type and have only 3 to 5 bullets per slide and 3 to 5 words per bullet. Really easy to remember. And make sure that you have consistency, and that includes your text, your layout, your graphics. So these are 3 slides from the Pathways presentation that I present on how to use a path to complete a goal rather than just as a series of speeches. And you'll notice that I have my headlines in the same place, my subheads at the bottom, my bullets in the same place, and all of my graphics are on the left side. And it really makes it easy for the reader, your audience, not to be distracted, because The focus is to be on you, not on your slides. Your slides enhance, they don't rule the show. If you use animation, stay consistent. I've seen some where people roll in, they flip around, they come slide in, they do vertical lines out. I mean, keep it simple. Use templates if you don't know how to do design, and use them for consistency. And in a Zoom meeting, don't put your URLs or documents that you want to share in while you're talking. Because if I do that, Derek's going to go over and click on it and he's not going to listen to what I'm saying. Right? So if you have any questions, my email address, of course, is in all of the distributions of the emails from the club here. But you can also write down my address. Feel free to contact me. If you'd like to get a copy of these slides, I can provide them to you as well. Back to you, Abhijit.
Thank you so much, Sandra. Sandra, this was illuminating. I never followed this information. So when I make a flyer next time, I'll make sure that I follow for my headline and for my body of the text. I'll follow those guidelines. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. Everyone, please take a minute. Timer, please give me a minute. Please write down your notes. Michael, you want to get us started? Michael Cohen?
Sure, go ahead. Thank you. You clearly know your subject. I liked your eye contact. My one concern is because I've seen people actually be in the slide. Because you didn't do that, I had to shift from you to the slides. So that was a bit concerning to me. I don't really know how to do that, so I can't advise you on that. I would have liked to see a little more gesturing and vocal variety. Because as you said, it's about you, not about the slides. But overall, a very good presentation. Back to you.
Thank you, Michael. Elaine?
Okay. Well, Sandra, I enjoyed the slides. I thought they were attractive, and I picked up some tips, and I'll email you because I would like a copy. So I just have some, so from the multimedia side of things as feedback, that might be helpful. I could hear you pressing your keys as you advance through the elements, and I probably, just a microphone thing. So to put it on a shock mount or something. And it wasn't very loud, but just if you want to take it up a level, just be aware that that is there. I like the agenda that you had, the ABC, the hierarchy, terminology, readability, finesse, but I wasn't able to map through those topics as you went through. And I think just a repetition of them as you go through, say, all right, hierarchy, the all right terminology. That would have helped me. That's how I like to take information in. And then finally, when you were flipping between the joke about the sins, you flip back and forth. And I think just work on that, tweak that a little. So you see it and then you flip to the right way and read it. That would be my suggestion. Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Thank you, Elaine. Birgit?
Thank you, Sandra. I really enjoyed your speech, and I enjoyed a lot of the examples that you used. That you used existing things that you saw on social media, existing ads, and it really gave us a visual. And I'm totally with you. Seeing all that small font is really difficult to read, and I scroll right by. One suggestion is, instead of using the slide that you put together and then saying, well, this is not the way that I would have done it, why don't you do a version the way you would have done it? Because, I mean, you're telling us don't do this, and then you did it. Yes, you had all those elements in there, but it was still a lot of text. So I would suggest maybe just, this might not be the way it was published, but show us what you would have done. And then the other thing is, I felt like there were two different topics in your speech. One was the typography piece with the serif and sans serif, and then it was already, how do I construct the slide presentation? And those to me were a little bit two different things, because when you start talking about, these are I felt like it got a little bit off topic from the typography. So either expand the topic of your speech, or based on the topic of your speech, hone down the detail of that. Because I felt like it was almost two speeches based on what I was expecting from the title. Good information for both parts. But I think I was expecting one thing. I got more, which it's always good to exceed expectations. But I would say that that was almost a different topic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Birgit. Nora?
Thank you. I really enjoyed the presentation. I was following well in the beginning, and it's just a reminder when I'm looking at a flyer or something like that, the type that's being used. But one of the things that I did have a question with, a problem with, and that was your flyer with the dancers on there. Although it was a Toastmasters flyer, the dancers on there threw me off. So to me, the words did not necessarily go with the purpose of what that particular flyer work was, even though there were two people on there. That kind of threw me off. I was taking really good notes. And again, when you went to the slide, like the other speaker said, I kind of got lost. I put my pen down. I was like, okay, we're not talking about type and typography anymore. We're talking about slides and how to construct the slides. But overall, I did enjoy the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Nora. Ravi?
Toastmaster. Sandra, that was a very nice presentation. I'm going to talk about two nice things that I've seen and one improvement or a suggestion. The first thing is, you made me realize that the fonts express a demography. There are fonts for men, women, short, and tall. This made me realize and look at the fonts again. Thank you for making me do that. The second thing that you really did was, you had seamlessly integrated stories in your presentation. The story of cigarette, the story of Toastmaster, they're all small stories. That is really good. And you even tried interacting with the audience, which is already, it's a tough thing. So you handle these two things very well. One thing that I would like to propose or a suggestion is, since there are so many slides, it would be nice if I know where I am in the presentation. It would be nice if I know, oh, I'm in point number 3. Okay, she's going to talk about point number 5. This is similar to what Elaine told, she told, you gave me an agenda, but I don't know where I'm in the agenda. So it would be nice if I would know where I am in the presentation. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Ravi. I really appreciate feedback from everyone. Thank you, Diana. Thank you for putting your feedback in the chat. I really appreciate that. We'll move on to the next speech. I'll come back to the rest of the evaluators in the next speech. Our next speaker is Derek Ho. His pathway is persuasive influence. This is level 4 speech, project 1, leading in difficult situations. The purpose of this project is for Derek to practice strategies for adjusting to the unexpected changes to a finalized plan. Derek will be demonstrating an alternative tool for the timer role. Derek Ho, fulfilling the timer role with Google Sheets. Fulfilling the timer role with Google Sheets, Derek Ho.
Good evening, everyone. By now, you have probably done the timer role yourself, or at least seen it at a Toastmaster meeting. When everything was in person, it was easy. You just hold up the cards up to the speaker, then they would know. However, once everything started moving to the Zoom land, the timer role still is difficult for people to master. The reason has to do with some problems with Zoom. You don't have a lot of control over where your timer is. Yes, you can pin it, but in instances, you lose it. For example, if you get spotlighted, then you can't pin it, which is not good. Also, if you try to look at it in the gallery mode, it tends to be really small. It's not very eye-catching, which is not that good. Ideally, you want something that doesn't fall, that isn't subject to the whims of Zoom, which is going to reorganize things based on who is speaking. Since the timer role doesn't have any words, it's going to deprioritize it and move it down the list. I think that's what happened in the previous speech. I saw the timer move from one place to the next. How are you supposed to know where to pay attention if it's always moving? Thus, I have a solution that uses Google Sheets. One feature that makes this a good option for the timer role is that it synchronizes. Whoever's looking at that Google Sheet, whenever there's a change, it will be visible to everyone that's looking at the Google Sheet. Now it's time to do a little demonstration so you know what I am talking about. I'm gonna need to be spotlighted as well as Abhijit. Abhijit will be assisting me in this demonstration. What we have right now is, in my background is the Google Sheet, and also in Abhijit's computer, his camera, you can also see the same Google Sheet. Whenever I make a change to it, for example, I can change the color to green when I need to, and you can see that the change propagates over to his slide. If I can change it to yellow, that change also happens. I can also change it to red pretty easily. Thus, this makes the timer role a lot easier. Whoever's controlling the Google Sheet can share that to everyone else. And it's not subject to the whims of Zoom. You can put it somewhere on your computer and expect it to still be in the same place it was before. This is good. Not only that, you can make it pretty big. Since it's a web browser, you can zoom in, zoom out, make it big so you don't miss the color changes. But how do you do something like this? How do you do something like this? So someone suggested put a clock as your screen. Yes, that can work if you're timing yourself. But the point of the timer role is to have the timer tell you what your timing is. Isn't that right? Thus, if your timer is controlling the sheet and the speaker is looking at that timer, that Google Sheet as well, they will be able to see the colors change at the right and appropriate times. But how do you make something like this for yourself in order to use in your club meeting? Obviously, you need to create a timer. And then you need a way to change the color, the background color of the cell. For example, if I type in G, you notice that it turned green. The way I do that is I actually go into the format, and then I pick something called conditional formatting. And you can see there's a bunch of options here. What I do is I'm going to remove them. That way you can see completely how I did it from the very beginning. Just switching scenes here. Okay, so here it is again. I go to Format, Conditional Formatting, and I want to add something. First, I pick the cell, which is A1, and I say, I check to make sure that it's equal to G for green, and I pick a good green color for that, and I click Done. Then I'm going to add another rule. I'm going to use the same range, A1, and I'm going to pick to make sure that it's equal to yellow, Y for yellow. Then I'm going to pick yellow. Then I got to pick red, and I'll do the same steps. Except I'm going to type in R and pick the color for red. And of course, we need one more. I want to be able to choose the white color when I make the cell empty. Now, when I edit the value to G, it turns green. When I change it to Y, it goes yellow. And when I type in R, it becomes red. And when I clear it, it goes back to white. This is a good tool because you have more control over where the timer is. You can put it somewhere on your screen, and it's not subject to the changes that Zoom makes. It doesn't rearrange it without you noticing. And also, you can make it big and noticeable. That is the end of my demo and instructional for how to do this. Now it is time to move on to the next part of my speech, which is the Q&A version. In order to fulfill the objectives of this speech, I need people to think of disruptive ideas, which is basically, where will this go wrong? And it can go wrong in a technological sense, a human error sense, or even a misunderstanding of the tools. I would like people to unmute themselves and start asking questions, and maybe start poking holes in the idea, find out where it could mess up, and I'll do my best to address those issues.
I can go first. I have a question.
Sure.
Derek,
yeah.
Do you mean that the speaker has to keep the Google Sheet or the web page open in a small corner of their screen?
Yes, they can put it anywhere. They can put it in the corner of the screen. If they have a second camera, a second monitor, they can put it there. If they have a smartphone, they can open the sheet there and they just prop it up and let the timer change the card as necessary. That way they don't miss out on it. The way that most people figure out the timing rule, the way that speakers figure it out, is they just time themselves, which kind of defeats the whole point of having someone do the timer rule if you're going to time yourself, right? This Google Docs, you can put it anywhere, and you can trust the timer to change it at the appropriate times.
So
Then-
I'd like
Yes.
I'd like to throw one out there because you just mentioned opening it on a smartphone, which I think is a good idea because I tend to do that. But is there a way to keep the smartphone alive? Because a lot of times it'll get dark. And if I'm using, for example, my work phone, I can't turn off the screen save. I can't make it never go black. So is there a way to keep it alive in Google Sheets? Like if it's playing a video, it knows to keep alive, but even when you have a clock timer, it doesn't do that.
Yeah, that's a good question. Especially on smartphones, they always try to save. You bring up an interesting point where you say you can't keep it on the whole time.
It's company policy. They if I'm using my personal phone, that's fine. But a lot of times I'll videotape myself speaking. So I need to use my work phone in case I can't see the timer. So this is a very relevant speech, but I can't turn off the fact that the screen goes blank after a certain amount of time. So it looks for something to be active. Like if I was playing a video, that would be fine. But even the clock as it's going doesn't stay alive. So Google Sheet wouldn't stay alive, I think.
The simplest, maybe the only way would be to just keep your finger on it. That way it thinks something's going on.
Yeah, but if I'm speaking, I don't want to. I know what you mean, but if I'm trying to use hand gestures, right? Then.
Yep, that's going to be tricky. But not everyone is using a phone, work phone. It's going to be hard since your work phone has restrictions on your phone. But I know that I don't know what kind of phone you have, but I know that iPhone has a way to prevent that. There's a mode where I think they call it guided access. There should be a version on Android. I don't know what it is. I don't have an Android, but I'm sure there's a version of it. And perhaps that can be the solution for you.
I'll check it out. Thanks.
Namita has a question. Go ahead, Namita.
He has 16 seconds to complete a speech. Yeah, so Derek, my question is, like you showed the background in Abhijit's screen, right? You changed the background in Abhijit's screen. What if the person for whom I'm changing the background is not very hands-on with technology? The person is new. They don't know what to do. So how can I help the person understand, okay, this is what I'm going to do. When I change the background on my screen, it will change on your screen as well. I hope I made my question clear.
Yes. Well, when you're faced with something new, it's a good idea to have a one-on-one session with them to show them at least how it works. There is very little that people have to do other than just putting it on their computer screen. They don't have to press anything unless they are the timer role and they're the ones changing the colors. If you're just looking at the colors, then you don't have to do anything. As for setting it up, maybe they don't know how to create their own. That's fine. There should be at least one person in your club that knows how it works. And what you can do is you can change the sharing options in the Google Sheet such that anyone can edit it. And then you can just tell them, okay, at this point in time, you type in G for the green card, type in Y for the yellow card, and red for the red card. Now, there's a version of this timer, which I didn't demonstrate, where you can actually use a drop-down menu. That way, it's even simpler for people to use. They can just pick the drop-down and choose the color that they need using a very similar strategy. But I didn't cover that in this demonstration because it's a little bit more complicated, and I think it takes longer than 5 minutes to to describe it. But there is a way to make it even simpler than in the way that I demonstrated in my speech today.
Thank you, Derek. Last question, Elaine.
Unmute, yeah, unmute. Derek, have something in there for colorblind people. Thanks. Some words.
Thank you, Elaine.
That's a good idea. Would a text work for colorblind people, or would you suggest?
Yes, I just displayed it on my background. This is how the toasters do it: green, yellow, red. It's really obvious. And otherwise they're doing, I'm timing. So can you see my background?
Yes. I do see it.
Okay. So just a suggestion.
Okay.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you so much. We'll now move on to the feedback. Let me call upon Jamal.
Thank you, Derek. This is awesome, innovative. This is the main reason I come to this club, because I get to learn new things. Very amazing, great way of doing timer. I basically have a problem, especially like when I'm using WebEx. I cannot change my virtual background that easily as Zoom. So this new way of using Google Docs really helps, because now I just need to share the link and everybody who has access to it can see the colors going in a smoother way. So 2 questions I have is, if it'll be nice if you can share this template with us so that we don't have to create the template. And the second thing is, if I am a timer, what am I showing on my screen? Am I showing anything on my screen? That is something would be nice to touch upon, because I don't have OBS software. So as a timer, what would I show on my screen, or do I show nothing? That is a question that I had. It'll be nice if you could clarify after the meeting. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Jamal. We'll come back to the answers after the meeting. Let me call upon Rishikesh. Any feedback for Derek, Rishikesh?
This was an interesting presentation, how to automate the green, yellow, and red timers. And I was thinking, couldn't we automate it even further? Like just have some sort of a countdown timer, and then it has a trigger within. You just set the input value as 8 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever it is, and have built-in triggers where it will automatically change the color of that cell, which again then gets displayed. That was just, my automation mind went further. So thanks for bringing this up and, triggering some more ideas. I think that's what the goal of this Toastmasters is, to trigger more technology innovations to simplify everyone's life. So we definitely achieved it. This is a great first start, and I'm sure we can all together improve on that.
Thank you, Rishikesh. Lynn?
Thank you. The deck is very wonderful, and the new skills, the presentation speech, and I really enjoy it. And also, yeah, before I previous, I just know that the timers, the role is just simply, right, as according the Zoom meeting, the background switch different color. But right now I have the new optional. I can use the Google Sheet and do the more optional. I haven't practiced, but I will be to practice. So I have a little bit one question is, how can I connect it when I use the Google Sheet and switch into the Zoom meeting? So use the background, the picture, or how is the, go through about that.
We'll come back to your questions after this meeting. Okay?
Oh, okay.
Hold on to your question. Okay.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Chie?
Go back to the Toastmasters.
Yes. Chie?
Thank you, Derek, for yet another very practical explanation and presentation of something that we can all use. I like how you share these free tools that everyone has access to, and it's not that hard. Conditional formatting has been around since Excel for decades, and many people know how to use it, but you demonstrated it in a way that was easy to follow. to unexpected changes to a finalized plan. I believe that's what I read. And I was a little bit confused about how the timer tool fits into this project. I can see how perhaps the finalized plan is the current practices that we have with the using the Zoom virtual background timer, but it felt like it wasn't quite a fit. That was my impression. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chi. Thank you for that feedback. Our last feedback from Asha.
Yeah, thanks, Derek. Most of the time I will be doing the timer's job, so it would be helpful. I had a question actually. It was a beautiful presentation. I know you can answer later. You mentioned that speaker themselves can place it. Isn't it too, the colors are like red, green, and yellow. Isn't it too bright and distract the speaker? That was my question.
Thank you so much, Asha. We'll come back to the answers to this after the meeting. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Let me call upon some people and get their experiences. Elaine, how was your experience today?
Hey, it was great. Good to see everybody. And I enjoyed seeing and hearing new speakers. Always do that.
Thank you so much, Elaine. Thank you. Nora, how was your experience, Nora?
It was really nice today. It was interesting. The speakers and the presentations were interesting. I really enjoyed them.
Thank you so much, Nora. I will now hand it over to our Madam President, Pooja. It's all you, Pooja.
Thank you, Abhijit. This was another fabulous meeting for the Multimedia Magicians, and I like how we are sharing tips and tricks and so much innovation in our speeches. Both of the speeches today, I learned something. So thank you to Sandra and to Derek, and thank you for all of your great feedback. It helps to keep us on track and meet our goals for our speaking. So thank you for a great meeting. It was fabulous to spend this 1 hour with each of you, and I look forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks. We will adjourn now, but for all the questions that have to be answered, feel free to stay back and continue this discussion.
Thank you so much, Pooja. Our speakers for next week are Gavin and Namita. Can I get a backup speaker? Does anyone wants to speak? Rishikesh, do you want to speak next as a backup speaker? Be ready in 2 weeks? Okay.
I'm still trying to figure out my schedule. I'm barely trying to be present for the meeting.
Okay. No worries, Rishikesh, no worries. We need a backup speaker. If anyone is interested, please let me know. And Jem, all you can ask your questions.